Hey, good evening, morning. Well, just greetings, everyone, and welcome to We the People 2. I am your host, Rhodes Pierre, and I'm so proud to be doing this show. Still, again, it's just a show about the people, just ordinary people in my life or in our lives, in the collective lives. And today, I brought a very special person. This person is near and dear to me. I've known her practically all of her life. She's my 9 years my junior, but definitely acts 9 years my senior. Is my little sister. Little well, people like to call her Little Oprah, but we know her as the Warden. But
That's right.
yes, but we love her anyway. Give it up for my young sister Rachel P. Pierre Champagne.
Thank you.
So the reason I brought Rachel on today was like again to continue the dialogue that we had started last week in regards to what's currently going on with the situation here in America and the world, and we wanted to focus a little bit on the Black Lives Matter movement. And just to kind of give you guys like a background of the Black Lives Matter movement is that it was kind of organized movement dedicated to protest against alleged incidents of police brutality. Well, it's not. I like the fact that people say it's alleged incidents of police brutality while it's clearly caught on video, but that's neither near nor there. But against African Americans, and the with the Eric Garner event. The Trayvon Martin incident, it was just kind of like it put into the idea that people like the sense that black lives, the fact that police could shoot indiscriminately and there was no justice, there was no accountability, there was nothing that held them to the standard of protecting and serving, and again protecting and serving who. And so I wanted to kind of dive deeper into the Black Lives Matter movement and see essentially like get a take on it from my younger cohort. But I'd like to let her to introduce herself because she's definitely got some good how should I say credits behind her. So she's got some credentials. So again, I couldn't do her justice. I'd just be like, hey, she's my awesome little sister. But Rachel, can you please introduce yourself and let the people know who you are?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for inviting me. Um, this is actually interesting that you have a podcast because it's one of the things that I've always had on my bucket list that I would start my own podcast myself. So it's cool that you've already are leading the way. Um, yes, as you know, I'm the little sister of Rhodes Pierre. Well, little in certain ways. And then I'm a technical. I actually don't live in the States right now, but I'm stuck here in the States as a result of COVID-19. I have been working for the last 10 years in Haiti in project management and community development work and education development work. And so, fortunately enough, through the last, I'd say, 20 years, my background's been in international relations and international development. And I'm just excited by the fact that, one of my dreams was to go back to Haiti, where our parents are from, our roots, and to do something that was more universal and systemic in terms of change and development. I remember when I was young, you had that chance, that opportunity as well to. Well, you lived there for a few years, and in your prime growing up years.
Yeah.
I wasn't even in the universe at that time.
Well, you were, but you were.
But I remember, the visits, the summer vacations that I had taken with my parents or our parents, and how that really marked my perception of life and really opened my eyes in terms of the struggle, the challenges, the fortitude, the resiliency that they had developed themselves as people to leave where they left. The challenges that they had to go through to come to the States, make it in their American dream, but then seeing what the experience that they had gone through, I realized that there's so much that I could do to contribute back to the development of Haiti and so on. But then I realized that from the last 10 years of being there, due to the earthquake and trying, bringing myself there to help in the reconstruction recovery effort, that there's such complexity to the issues around people of color, the lives of Black people, not just in the United States, but Black people in the Western Hemisphere, and even Black people in Africa and in Europe and so on. So I think that this is a really interesting opportunity for us to have a discussion about these issues. And I'm always trying to see how I can, contribute what little that I am able to offer to help and promote a more universal paradigm shift in what we're living and how we're living.
Okay. See, like you definitely got a different perspective of like growing up in Haiti than I did. And
Well, I didn't grow up in Haiti.
yeah,
I went to visit.
yeah,
I was visiting around the ages of 9, 10, 12.
yeah.
So those are, I think, it's different than being 3, 4
Years
years
old,
old.
exactly. So
Yeah.
therefore, my impression is completely different from
Yeah.
what the country than what you
Yeah.
got. So I can see now why our development.
Why I was, but initially I really wanted to become an FBI agent. Yes.
Yeah, why?
X-Files.
Yes, I remember that show. My man Mulder and my woman
Scully.
Yeah. They did it. But no, but seriously, back to the issue that we were gonna, that we're talking about, and that is again like the Black Lives Matter movement, and that you said that it's something that you're seeing that has an effect globally, because we don't even there are Black people in maybe in Antarctica, maybe not, there might not be anybody.
You never know.
No, you never know.
Because you'd be surprised that there's a Haitian person in literally every country. When I went to Abu Dhabi in 2019 to take the group of Haitian athletes from Special Olympics Haiti to Abu Dhabi, we met a group of Haitian teachers, professionals, there with their flags rooting for the team and so on. So yeah, we're everywhere.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. I gotta say that. I agree with that one. Mm-hmm. So as far as like the Black Lives Matter movement, with again, how do you feel like as a person of color, especially a woman of color, like what do you see in particular? Like, how does that make you feel? Like, what do you think about it?
Well, the movement is something that is constant and that is evolving, ever evolving. And one of the things that I realized in, thinking about the conversation we're going to have today is the fact that there isn't enough emphasis on the history of people of color, history of Black people, and that, this isn't the first time. And these are these challenges, these atrocities, the violence against people of color. This is on constant throughout our history, and so I think the big difference is, and this is basically being identified today, more or less in different circles, is that we have a way of instantaneously documenting and diffusing the data, the content,
transmitting it.
Yes. I'm thinking in French, English, Creole, so sometimes I'm using different words that really meant something else.
Or distributing it.
Yeah, distributing. And so it's instantaneous, and people from everywhere parts of the world can see it. You can't deny what you see. And it's not it's not a movie, it's actually something that is just being done to an individual who happens to have a particular melanonin, who is darker skin, and the reasons behind that is and why that has become part of has become normalized in our society, both in the United States and abroad, is something that we still have not taken the time to unpack and deconstruct. And it's now because of, you can say, thanks to COVID-19, that people had the time to sit down, stay home. And then also because of the situation in the incident with, rest in peace, George Floyd, that this has exposed the realities to the majority, So this is, for me, one of the issues with the movement. So it's documented, it's recorded, it's available for people to see. And then as a woman of color, the issue with the movement is that um they talk a lot more about the victimization of black men, but women of color are more often kidnapped, more often being sexually abused and raped, abused financially, and so it's the narrative has to be more broader in terms of the systemic atrocities, the systemic abuse that is happening to black people in general. And so we cannot just definitely we understand the impact that the violence has had on black men, but there are also different forms of violence that are happening towards black women as well. And so the movement, we need to be more savvy, more sophisticated in ensuring that all these different narratives are being presented in order for us to really push towards a more systemic paradigm shift.
Okay. And then I agree 100% with what you're saying. But the thing is, it's like in regards to saying like you're saying it hasn't been documented. I mean, well, in the 1960s they had films, and you're saying that that the fact that they haven't acknowledged like the struggle of like women as part of the movement. And again, the I again, I'm not a woman, so I can't experience it. I can definitely say, like, yes, I based upon the statistics, like just like the birthing rates of African American women here, and the fact that they die at a disproportionate rate compared to their counterparts, like including like women in third world countries. Like if you're a black woman in this country, you're more likely to die giving birth at a hospital than you would giving with a midwife. So just the statistical data. I mean, there are plenty of books that have been written on the fact that like you said, so many women of color get kidnapped. And then no one's talking about like there's 64 currently missing women of color like since the Black Lives movement started. So there are things again that again like you're saying we're not talking about. Like we are kind of getting the narrative. And speaking of the narrative, um, what kind of impact do you think the Black Lives Matter movement is going to make globally and locally? Like,
Okay, so just to the piggy not piggyback, but just to sort of pinpoint on something that you said, that I was saying that this wasn't documented before. It has been documented before. It's just not. It wasn't instantaneous as it is today.
okay, okay.
So
Yeah, because you had ABC, like everything was controlled, but these days because of the internet and
the internet has
sort
freed the information age has
okay.
created free reign. It's like information is now the wild wild west.
Okay.
And thank goodness it's still not completely regulated.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously
don't
we
give
need
them
to
no ideas.
but okay, so in terms of your second question, what I would say,
And you would mind repeating that second question?
I think so. If you can remind me.
What the impact of Black Lives Matter?
Yeah, so I was
Globally and locally.
yeah, so for me, the impact of the Black Lives Matter movement, globally and locally, is that you you have the different voices, you have the different um, instances. You have the development of connections and bridges and linkages of people of color all over the world in many different ways, and even people who are not who are white. Who may not have the experience or the deal with the realities of people of color are seeing it from their point of view, and so it brings and it strengthens and reinforces the what is happening, the occurrences, because there are more people having that exposure to what is happening not only in the United States but also people of color abroad. Meanwhile, there are tons of complexities and nuances that are um, part of the different realities and different contexts. When I can only speak for Haiti. I've been to bless. I mean, it's a blessing that I had a chance to travel to many different countries in the last. I mean, the time that I've been growing up and living, working abroad, and the treatment of people of color are different, but then there are, if you're conscious, if you have that consciousness,
No,
of that mindfulness and awareness of what the treatments and the differences are in different places. Because as an African American woman living, when I lived in France, it wasn't the same as being an African woman living in France. And so dressing and speaking and the the way that I looked versus an African woman who came from Western Africa to make a better living in France did not have that same opportunity that I had when I got the job to be a teacher and working in Normandy and teaching gospel music, as a fun extracurricular activity. And the French were like, "Oh, madame, this is such a great opportunity, Oh, I love the gospel music. It makes me, my skin have all these goosebumps and so on." And it's like, and then when I look at, I'm in the RER and I see how that they're looking and treating this African woman that just looks like me, but it just happened maybe dressed a little bit different. It's like, wow. And then when, living, not living, but visiting Brazil for a month for a human rights class, and then seeing how there's all these different nuances when it comes to people of color in Brazil. I can imagine the same thing, people in South Africa. So it's just, and even in Asia, even in India, the issue of whiteness versus dark skin and then colorism. It's so complex. So anyways, the question is about the impact of Black Lives Matter in at the global and local perspective. For me, is that it helps unpack all these nuances, the psychological programming that we've had for these hundreds and hundreds of years on how we had to um, look at our identity and our identity being erased or being what is it, the co-opted or used for selling, and it we've been
again, look, well,
the we're transactional. We're not. There's no humanity or dignity, and so now we're bringing the humanity and the dignity back to us as people.
Yeah.
And not just saying that our voice, our art, our music, our dancing, our intellect is not something that can be just taken and used and make money for our labor, our strength. Is that all of that has been taken away from us, and hopefully in 2020 that this is a beginning of a movement towards us taking back these things.
It's funny that
and
it is
humanizing ourselves.
It's funny that it is 2020 and they say 2020 vision is like perfect vision, and so this is like kind of the year to. I know the one says the crazy year, but it's also maybe the year that we should kind of refocus as humanity and, like as you said, kind of like really dive deep into this and kind of like reattach humanity to the movement, and it's not just kind of categorize it as like well, we'll take care of this aspect of it. We'll just take care of police brutality, and we won't talk about the economic development. Or we'll take care of it, but we won't talk
the
about
health,
we won't talk about the health,
education.
Yes, so it's like
yes, there's a cross sectional aspect to our evolution as a species.
Yeah,
and there has to be safeguards put in place to guarantee basic human rights for all people.
Yeah.
And when the system is designed or set up by design for a few to advance or a few to progress in those who have their hands tied behind their backs or a leg chopped off. And so when one of the as a volunteer board member for Special Olympics Haiti, one of the takeaways that I have from working and volunteering with persons with intellectual disabilities and seeing their drive, their motivation to succeed and to achieve, despite the actual physical disability or the intellectual disability that they have.
They want to do it.
They have the drive. Yeah. And then I say the same thing, in terms of other communities. The fact that despite all of the obstacles that are in front of you, in front of us, we still push, we still make an effort. Mm-hmm. We still, rise, just like Maya Angelou.
And then the thing that you mentioned, the fact that people with disabilities, is the fact that, yes, even though like they're disabled and people think they want the same things that we do.
Yes.
Same things. They want to be loved.
Treat me, love me, accept me.
Exactly.
And that's what it is. BLM is about accepting me, accepting myself, accepting all of us as we are. The hair.
Okay, yeah. So just accepting people who they are. One of the things I like to think is like with the BML movement, I feel like it equates to the climate change deniers, people that say, no, I don't believe in science, I don't believe it, like, oh, I don't see color, no, it's not happening. With the BML movement, I feel like it's actually now, people can't be so dismissive about actually denying that racism exists. Because people, like, for the longest time would just be like, no, it doesn't exist. I don't believe it. It's like, it's not true. We have the best opportunities in this country. Everything is great. Or they're like, oh no, it's because you're not working hard enough. That's why you're not here. And I'm like, well, the educational system, the way it's set up, or the healthcare system, the way it's set up, like put me at a disadvantage already in regards. So again, people don't even want to acknowledge it.
And just to piggyback on that point, and I will be plugging this book later, but I've been reading this book from Michel Rolf-Tupuyo, who's a Haitian author and researcher. And I highlighted some very interesting facts about the evolution or the journey of the independence of Haiti as a country. And interestingly enough, the Haiti in the time that it was from like 1736 to all the way to I think another 160 years after that was the coffee and sugar supplier producer of the pretty much dominating of the world. So they produce approximately 60% of coffee and sugar for the Western civilization. And so the folks who got involved in this in these industries were people who just retired from as soldiers, or who just want to be bougie, but they couldn't be in part of the
elite in France,
the elite, the aristocrats.
They were nouveau riche.
So they went west, like people west, and
exactly.
And they're like I want to get a piece of this pie. So, in interestingly enough, Haiti is 80% mountainous. So, when you're looking at where is the best place to plant the sugar canes and the coffee plants and so on, it's in the lands that are most flat. But when you have 80% mountainous communities, and then you have a very limited amount of space. So, okay, you have these slaves, but you can't use the land for the sugar and the coffee to feed the slaves. So you're like, okay, slaves, you can have the lands that are on the side of the mountain. They allow them to plant their own food, produce their own food. And so this, in a sense, was the first sense of, as a person who is a slave, I can do something and build something for myself. But though they were still slaves, but then the first initial rebellion that happened in Haiti wasn't about freeing themselves. It was about having more days
Off,
off
yes.
to be able
Able
to
to
plant
plant
food
food.
for themselves to eat.
Yes.
Meanwhile,
Yeah.
and meanwhile, they were also, we're hustlers as Haitians. We're entrepreneurs. So
Yes.
if I'm producing this amount of food, I don't need to eat all of it. I can still use some of that to be able to sell and make some, money on the side.
Yes.
So, anyways, the time goes by. The French, the mulattoes, the blacks, and they're just like, we're doing all of this work. We're making all this money. We're sort of like the Middle East of the Western Hemisphere, and we have all this riches and production. Why are we still giving this money to these people over here, all the way on the other side? So it then they all realize, like, how are we going to really create an independent country if we don't have the mass? So it wasn't just about, okay, me as French elite, that the idea de liberté, égalité, fraternité was, and well, some of them just didn't think about black folks, but at the end of the day, the mulattoes were like, okay, we really want to be able to free ourselves and to be able to become independent. So this idea of freedom cannot just be a freedom for us, it has to be freedom for everybody. So going back to the point of our conversation, Black Lives Matter, yes, it starts with us. It starts with us giving our, sharing our voice. It starts with us talking about our stories. It starts with us documenting. It starts with us making demands. But it also has to be a critical mass, and everybody also have to be on board and saying that this idea, this change, this what is it, the paradigm shift? I keep on using that word, but it's a catalyst for change. And I think it has to be something that all people want, and the vision of people of color as part of that process.
I believe, the world has been speaking. It's like, 23, 24 days straight protesting globally, and people are still out there protesting. And although they're protesting, still there are other atrocities that are still happening with the police.
I agree.
I
agree, and I'm not trying to stop you from what you're saying. The point of this was that the fact that the folks in Haiti had their 40 acres already.
Yeah.
So they weren't gonna let that go away. Where people after 1863, they promised them that 40 acres. They promised them that land to be able to take care of themselves. They never got it.
Yeah. Well, the thing I was gonna say in regards to that was the fact that that although, like you were saying, that they went to the owners, the slave masters, and they said, we just want one extra day off.
I didn't say one extra day off.
Whatever they negotiated. But the thing is, they were negotiating to the point where, like, we'll do the same amount of work. Just just make it a 4-day work week, which they have in Germany. Because I remember reading it, it was like they said, we'll do the same amount of work. We'll do in 4 days.
This is Germans or Haitians?
Haitians. Okay. They wanted a 4-day work week. Now they have that in Germany. Do you know in Germany they only work 4 days a week? Mm-hmm. Okay, so anyway, they adopted that from us. So, anyway.
Well, I had no idea. I was just trying to get some.
That's what I was just trying to tell you.
Yes.
All they wanted was one extra day off. And they were like, we don't want to be no more. We didn't say we ain't gonna be no more slaves. We just want one extra day off. And they were like, nah, y'all still gonna have to work that extra day. You see how unreasonable some people can be?
But the rebellion got them those extra days.
Yes.
But then after that. Yeah,
I'm just saying. Exactly. Yeah. People in power. It's like if someone. It's just like, again, when people equate it to being like, if you're an oppressor, it's being a rapist. It's like the rapist is not going to get off you unless you actually get him. He's not going to stop.
So obviously, Haiti got its independence in 1804.
Mm-hmm.
But interestingly enough, in addition to the French, the other two main sovereign states that did not recognize Haiti as an independent country was the United States and the Vatican. So in at that time, the need for education, and especially you have this mass of black people can't read or write, so you need to be able to help them to evolve. But because of the number of years that it took them to be recognized. It eventually it messed up with the education system.
Mm-hmm.
So we have what we have today for many different reasons, and
Yeah.
in the fact that we didn't get recognized and our dignity wasn't respected from other states, it is a challenge. But we don't need that recognition. We need to know ourselves and our own identity as people.
Amen.
Yes.
True that. True that. So, like, we're kind of like, it's so funny. Like, literally, the time has flown by. Like, and like we haven't gone through everything. But did you want to plug your book before?
Oh, I sort of did.
All
So
right.
I brought it up, and so yes, as you can see, yes. As I mentioned, Michelle wrote to you. The book is called Haiti State Against Nations: The Origins and Legacy of Duvaliers. But obviously, there's a lot more about than the independence in this book. It's about the cycle of
Any insights about that book and what's going on in Haiti with the Black Lives Matter?
But that's what I was bringing up about the history of the Haitian independence movement and how did that, the need for us to be able to have our ownership of our own identity.
Okay.
But more, I'd say more importantly, oops, sorry, my pen just dropped. I would say that there has to be a critical mass of all people, not just the people who have, but in all, or just the people who do not have that are fighting. But everyone has to be in agreement that the movement, and the shift has to change.
Amen. Amen. Because it is true. Like, because there are plenty of people that are wealthy and are saying like, I don't need this. I want to be taxed properly. Like Warren Buffett always says that. He's like going like, until the tax code changes, it's like I can't. It's like, but he's like saying he doesn't feel right that the fact that he has so much and he can give more in taxes, then it wouldn't hurt him, and that it doesn't equate that way because some few in Congress want to keep their power and the status quo. And that's, I think, it's really going to be, I'm going to like wrap up the show. I'm going to thank Rachel for coming out and gracing us with a presence or insight into the Black.
Well, you can count the days because I'm trying to get myself back to.
No, I'm going to miss you. So we'll talk about that later. But no, like again, give shout out to Herb and New Alliance Studios.
Thank you very much for hosting
for hosting this. I mean, last time like I had a prayer to start the show, so I'd like kind of end up with a little prayer on this show, going like, "Hey Lord, thank you for that. We made it for the show. Bless the show and help us continue spreading some good news and love through this platform." And amen. Thank you again, Rachel, for coming to the show.
Thank you for the invitation, Rose.
No problem.
Love you.
Love you too, sis. It was awesome. Get to share a little, like, a little insight, But anyway, you guys have been wonderful for tuning in, and we'll get this stuff out in the air, and then, like it, share it, let the people know. And again, it's we the people, as in the French saying, yes, the people. All right, well, it's about us as the people, and it's not about the politicians, the corporations, the banks, and it's about us, the people, and we are the majority. Thank you, and talk to you guys next week.